2020 has been a difficult year for all of us. And it seems as if there isn't a single area of our lives that hasn't been confronted in some way by the challenges and constraints set upon us by the pandemic. This is certainly true of our experience of church. Attending a service now is certainly a lot more complicated than it used to be. Long-established patterns of worship, deeply ingrained rhythms have been interrupted. How long for? Well, we simply can't be sure. I've said before now how I've long suspected that the phrase "the new normal" is in fact a code word or synonym for change. And whatever age or stage we find ourselves, we've all had to accommodate and adjust to a great deal of change. And even then, in the areas where we've had to shift or flex, we have to hold on to those things lightly, for fear that the goalposts will shift once again and we have to begin the process of adjustment all over again. Ironically, it seems, change is now a constant feature of our lives. So what does this mean for church? What does this mean for our ministry and worship here at St. Paul's going forward? Well, let's rewind. Before lockdown, most of us would have had in our mind's eye a model of going to church which would have looked and sounded something like this. Sunday morning would arrive and we'd physically make our way to the church building. So the direction of travel would have looked something like this. The corporate worship, whether that be in the breaking of bread, the teaching of the scriptures, through prayer, through music, something about our corporate worship would have hopefully meant we felt enthused, energised in our faith, ready to take the hope of the Christian message out of the building and out into the rest of the week with us, wherever that may be. Now, for argument's sake, let's call that the hub model, where our activities were concentrated in our shared meeting space, the hub, that being, in our case, the church building. But then, of course, the thing which has since come to dominate all of our lives arrived: COVID-19. What does COVID mean for the hub model of church? Well, let's think about it. Sunday arrives, and now some of us will still physically make our way to the church building, but a good many others will stay at home and participate from the comfort of their living room. Some because they are shielding, others because they're anxious, and others still because they simply prefer it. Then there's another category of church attendance, where people choose not to tune into the live event, but catch up later, watching on demand, which reflects the way we consume media more generally. This means there are a good many folk who attend our Sunday services on a Wednesday, or a Thursday, or a Friday. The hub model simply does not reflect the pattern of church attendance that we're seeing right now, and that's likely to be the case for quite some time. Church attendance is a little messier, a little less neat than it used to be. As a worshipping community, we are gathered and we are scattered. So what does it mean to do church in such a way that is less dependent upon the hub model? How can we approach church in a way that addresses the complexities of our current situation? Well, I want to begin by changing verbs. Perhaps, just perhaps, our fascination with structures and practicalities, with timings and logistics, means we've become obsessed with what it means to do church and have been less attentive to the more fundamental question as to what it means to be church. Whether gathered or scattered, we are the church. We're connected by something more than our shared hub. And as important as our church buildings have been and will continue to be going forward, we are joined more fundamentally by our shared faith in Jesus Christ. This year, we have rediscovered what it means to be a people joined by a common creed. But of course, faith is more than a matter of words, more than a statement, more than a historic formulary we might recite on Sundays. Faith is dynamic. Faith is living. Faith is spirit-breathed. Faith is an adventure. So whether we're gathered or whether we are scattered, yes, we are the church. And any model or vision about being the church must therefore start with where we are, both physically and spiritually speaking. What if we thought about church less as a hub and part of a bigger journey? The chances are we've heard the phrase, a journey of faith. And yes, it is something of a cliche. And yet the idea of a journey nonetheless well describes our own experiences of the Christian life. Joy and loss, assurance and doubt, friendship and hardship. Though the path we tread is well worn, it's nonetheless uneasy and unpredictable underfoot. Small wonder then that we find ourselves in various places in terms of our own Christian discipleship. There'll be days when we feel as if we're tending just a modest kernel of faith within, and yet there'll be other days where we feel we could keep stride with the greatest of God's giants. The mission of the local church, our mission, is the God-given charge to direct people along this path, encouraging our neighbours to press on, to move ahead on the journey of faith, even as we ourselves take one step forward and fall 2 steps back. Everything we do to draw alongside others is as fellow pilgrims on the road. All ministry, all worship, therefore, emanates from a point of empathy, knowing that the Christian life is both glorious and messy. This is confirmed time and again by our own experience, and that's the common testimony of every saint from every era, from every corner of the globe. And while this paradox, the glory and mess of living out the gospel in a disordered world, calls us to live with tension, ambiguity, even mystery, we must nonetheless have a clear vision to encourage and equip our brothers and sisters in their faith and growth in Jesus Christ. There are many ways we could picture this journey, but for the purposes of our shared ministry and worship at St Paul's Beckenham, the various stages of Christian belief and service in the context of our local church are shown in this diagram. Encounter, enquire, explore, engage, enable. These are the 5 steps at the heart of our vision moving forward. Let's break these down one by one. Encounter. Well, this represents our first contact with the church, in whatever capacity that may be. Now, for those of us for whom church has always played a significant role, we might not even remember this phase. We should not, however, make the same assumption of others. Something like babies and toddlers, as it was before the lockdown, or even our use of social media, may well represent this, the moment of encounter. Enquire. Well, this is about starting a dialogue with those on the fringes of our fellowship. Much about this phase is a matter of unveiling the relevance of the Christian gospel for the challenges of contemporary life, or of showing how the church is an active power for good in the community and broader society. Our public lectures or even weddings can often serve as points of inquiry. Explore. Well, the previous 2 phases can be described in terms of being an active Christian presence. This stage marks a deliberate shift toward proclamation. The dialogue involves more explicit forms of evangelism, presenting the central tenets of Christian belief. So the Alpha course, or confirmation preparation, would serve as a clear example of this stage. Engage. This is about engaging more deeply with our faith. Anselm of Canterbury used this phrase, faith seeking understanding, which well describes the intent of this phase. Having heard and received the Christian gospel, we seek here to grow in godliness. Clear biblical preaching, home groups, theology events serves as opportunities to engage. Enable. Well, this is about enabling all regular worshipping members to contribute to the life of the parish. This stage actively encourages everyone to use their gifts and resources to build up our common life and to explore areas of responsibility and leadership in which they will flourish.
So, those 5 stages, as we've broadly defined them, are simply part of a model which helps us to piece together the bigger picture. It's a tool which reminds us of our critical task to invite others to join us on the journey. So, a question we should be reflecting upon often is this: what can we be doing to help move others forward in their journey of faith? Now, as we reflect on that requires us to have a good pastoral oversight of those we live alongside and worship with. This is a call to friendship, a call to deeper fellowship. Now, while we hope that the general trend of Christian discipleship is to move along those stages from left to right, the truth is every awakening to faith is a unique experience. People may stay in a place of distant inquiry for many years before actively exploring the central tenets of Christian belief. And though our hope is that as many as we encounter will come to a saving faith in Jesus Christ, we nonetheless take every stage of the faith journey seriously, knowing that even the briefest of conversations with the most ardent of atheists has significance and value for the kingdom of heaven. Taking these 5 stages of Christian belief and faith seriously has major implications for our approach and attitudes toward mission and ministry at St. Paul's Beckenham.
As fellow wanderers, then, we acknowledge that there's a great deal to learn and discover for ourselves, and that's exciting. Sharing together in this process of learning means we foster a culture of inquiry and not of suspicion. In this vein, the local church exercises its authority with an openness and a security that encourages all to explore the questions and challenges posed by contemporary culture. So in terms of our attitude to ministry going forward, we therefore seek to better understand those we live alongside and serve. We will be conscious of the assumptions that are so easily made when we share our faith, knowing that the Christian gospel no longer underpins many of the values and axioms that are central to our neighbours' worldviews. Put simply, though we are not atheists, we take the atheism of others seriously. Though we're not agnostics, we take the agnosticism of others seriously, understanding that the Holy Spirit is calling us to share our faith in Jesus Christ with precisely these people. From the simplest offer of a cup of tea to the public forums we facilitate, we pledge ourselves to the task of apologetics. But there's something here too about working smarter and not necessarily harder. We need to be better connected. Like most churches, St. Paul's Beckenham has a varied programmes of ministries, activities and committees. But what connects them? Without a central vision, the various areas of church life can become disconnected. Without a shared sense of direction, it's easy for the structures to take over, to become the driving force of all we do, rather than simply be the supportive framework they were meant to be. So it's easy to put the cart before the horse, so to speak. Moving forward, everything we do will therefore be justified on the basis that it contributes something of value to this broader vision. Everything we undertake must positively reinforce one or more of the 5 stages of the journey. If an activity or idea doesn't facilitate a point of encounter, if it doesn't help people to inquire, explore, or engage with the saving work of Jesus Christ, if it doesn't enable growth in service and leadership, then it's not worthy of the resources placed into our stewardship. All we do must serve a common purpose and be connected by the central vision. Now, since the lockdown, we have already started to shift our approach. We are becoming less driven by the structures and more led by our gifts. And this is how it should be.
We have learned so much in the last few months alone. Through painful and gracious conversation, we have rediscovered how matters of race lay at the heart of the gospel. Since moving our services online, we've been able to connect with people we had no previous relationship with. We're considering how best to share our faith on social media. As we think of the future, uncertain as it is, there is nonetheless much to be excited about. Now is not the time to be shrinking back and hiding away from the adventure. We are learning to adapt because we're coming to terms with the fact that whether we are gathered or scattered, we are church and we are on a journey.